Welcome to the Living in Alignment podcast. My name is Amy Landry. Through a collage of conversations, here we distill mindful living and timeless wisdom within a modern, everyday context. Thank you for being here. Louisa Sear has dedicated her life to the practice and teaching of yoga. She is passionate in the inquiry to find one's true nature and freedom. In her teaching, Louisa encourages the understanding and acceptance of life, finding the teacher within, and acknowledging the divine in all. Louisa has been teaching yoga for over 35 years and has had a committed Yoga Sadhana practice for over 38 years. She teaches the principles of Tantric Advaita Philosophy and specialises in self-inquiry, Therapeutic Yoga, Ayurveda Lifestyle, mindful Vinyasa Asana, Pranayama, and Meditation. Louisa is the lead teacher on the yoga arts teacher trainings, retreats, and workshops in Bali and around the globe. Louisa encourages her students to develop inwardly by diving deeply into oneself to awaken through mindful, conscious practice, both on and off the mat. And with that, thank you so much, Louisa, for your time. Welcome to the podcast. It's so nice to both see and speak with you.
Great. Thanks, Amy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Can we begin by delving into your path and your story, which I'm sure there's so many elements to it, but I must say that there's always been a sense of humility that I've picked up in everything that you do, and yet you've been doing this for such a long time, and essentially, I think, particularly for me here in Australia, probably paved the way and really laid a foundation for the yoga community decades ago. So I would love to know how that unraveled, because back then not everybody was really doing yoga. So would you like to share that?
Sure. Yeah, that's true. It wasn't like it is now. And yeah, so basically, I grew up in southern Sydney in the Shire, and I was the last of 6 children. And how the story goes is that my mother, which I can't even imagine having 6 children because it's a job, as we know, even having one child, and I'm a no child person, so it's a big job, yeah. So I think she went through a period where she was really stressed and a bit sort of overwhelmed with looking after 6 young children. And with that sort of stress and anxiety and different things that were arising for her, she was looking for something to alleviate that. Yeah. So she found yoga. And so that was also fortunate for us because as young children, we were carried along with her to the yoga classes. So we somehow got introduced very early on as children and just having that around us. And then when we were old enough, we started to go ourselves, and we were lucky, which was also quite unusual and quite rare then, that we had a little yoga studio right in our suburb of Caringbah. Yeah. And it was an integral yoga studio with a teacher called David Das, and he was a devotee of Sat Chidananda. And I think it was just called Integral Yoga Studio. But yeah, we used to go along when I remember, an adolescent, when I was 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I would go to his studio and learn the yoga. And I went through my papers some time ago, actually, when I was in Australia. I was throwing some things out, and I still have these like handouts from his class, back then, which is in the 70s. Yeah, so, all the little stick figures of all the postures and the pranayama and all those things. Anyway, so that was my introduction, which was, really beneficial. And interestingly enough, maybe I'm going to sort of jumping in and off the subject here, but interesting enough, I ended up meeting Satchidananda when I was 21. And we were actually down in Victoria going to some festival, and he had been giving a talk in Melbourne because he had a community there for some time. I think it was called Ontos Community. And yeah, so we went to his talk, and then everybody at the end of the talk was going up and just, thanking the Guruji for his talk. And so I did the same. I sort of lined up, and yeah, so we met, and we had like a brief moment because there was many people in the line, and he was just asking me, about my life and myself. And I had my first experience of Shaktipat with him. And even thinking about it now, I get sort of quite emotional because, yeah, it was definitely a significant and a profound moment on my path of experiencing that transmission of energy, or transmission of whatever you'd like to call it, of prana, of love, that I've experienced only a few times, or been lucky enough to experience. And yeah, so I experienced that with him, interestingly, after having my introduction with going as an adolescent to one of his disciples or students. Yeah, so from then what happened? I think I left home at the age of 17, and I ended up in Western Australia. And yeah, that was also after that time that I met Satchidananda, and basically yoga became cemented then in my life. Like when I went as an adolescent, I was going, but it was much more sort of relaxed and casual. And then it became my life, basically. And I found another teacher when I was in Perth, and I started in terms of the asana tradition. I started Iyengar yoga also then in terms of the asana. And yeah, it just became everything. I never sort of thought of teaching or this or that, but it was just somehow rolled out in front of me, if you know what I mean, like my path that just manifested that, by the time I was 21, I started teaching. Yeah, and I guess that's sort of like a brief story, but that was sort of the pathway. Yeah, I began when I was young. I left home and I got introduced to these teachers, and it just, yeah, that was it. It was just my everything, because it just made so much sense in terms of what the foundation and the essence of yoga in terms of life was. Yeah, so it wasn't like it was separate from my life, but then it was my life, embracing my life. Yeah, and everything that came with that.
So as you just mentioned, you found your Iyengar teacher in Western Australia, but am I correct, like you had a background in Ashtanga as well? Did that then develop after that, and how did that weave into what you were teaching at the time?
Yes, it did. So basically, I had a meditation practice from that early age. So that was sort of not separate, but it wasn't, meaning that it wasn't in the tradition of the asana that I was teaching as such. The pranayama was, but my meditation was always there. But with the Iyengar yoga, so I was practicing that. I also apprenticed for some time with Eve Grabowski in Sydney for many years at the Sydney Yoga Centre. Over time, even though I was living away, I would come down to Sydney and do 3-month stints. And there I met my dear old friend, Simon Borgalivia, who said to me one day, oh, hey, let's go and try this class in Bondi. When Bondi or Bronte, I can't remember. And so off we went. It was to an Ashtanga class. And it was with a teacher then called Robert Lucas, who maybe many haven't heard of, because he was really just quite a hermit type of a quiet chap that wasn't really out there in the yoga world as such, putting himself out there. But anyway, we went to his class, and then being, I don't know, 21 years or 22 years old at the time, I loved it. It was very physical, and I thought, oh, great. So I also started practicing that, but I had the Iyengar foundation already, so which I felt very fortunate about, because that gave me a lot of good understanding in terms of alignment and structure, which in the early days, the Ashtanga didn't have so much. It was very much sort of Indian style then. Now it's changed because, you know, everybody has such a, you know, wealth of knowledge coming from all different areas that, you know, everyone has got that. So yeah, I got that Ashtanga sort of inspiration, and then started practicing and went to Mysore also, as well as visiting the Iyengar Institute. But so yeah, so I was sort of doing both at the same time, which meant I've always had that mindset. I've allowed myself to sort of be open to the different paths and not being, I guess, not being dogmatic in one path, but getting the benefit and the jewels from what is to offer. At the same time, definitely being dedicated to the particular tools, if that makes sense.
I suppose that's provides such great value in terms of teaching, because you're teaching so many different people, and everybody has different needs, and having that more broad experience, if you will, and exposure is just giving you, as you said, more jewels, more insight into, you know, being able to serve people perhaps more effectively maybe. But I'm interested to know, so as you're teaching, how did you go from teaching to offering your very infamous 9-month teacher training in Byron Bay?
Actually, so how that came about was, yes, I was teaching regularly, and I guess in those days too, I was teaching a lot of like 1-month intensive courses, and it would either be an Ashtanga intensive or even a more Iyengar focused intensive early morning courses. And so at the time, some students basically came to me and they said, oh, look, you know, we really want to train with you. Yeah. And the only thing that was pretty much happening at that time, and also my own experience, was doing the apprenticeship type of training where you apprentice with the teacher, which I think is also very valuable and a really great way to learn. And that's also how I learned, and I know it's still, you know, done that way these days, and definitely traditionally in India as well. So, but for myself at that time, I love to travel still, and I, you know, loved going to India and, you know, continuing my own study, and just, I guess at young age still, and I think at that time when I was asked these questions, I was maybe 29 or 30. And in my own mind, the benefits that I found myself from going deep into sadhana practice and deep into like a tapas type of, you know, practice, was doing intensive type of training. Yeah. And I had done that myself by, you know, going to India and spending like 3 months in ashram and doing, you know, intensives, meditation and practice as such. And I found an incredible expediation in my understanding and my growth and my, you know, expansion of mind, etc. So I thought, oh, I'd really like to offer something like that, you know, that would be intensive, you know, and the benefits of doing something like that. And so that's when I came up with the idea of the 9-month full-time teacher training. And I thought, yeah, so instead of me apprenticing someone for 3 years, I could do this 9-month teacher training. So for me at that time, you know, it seemed a lot, in some ways, a little bit less commitment or responsibility for myself to commit to someone for 3 years than to do like a 9-month full-time course, plus getting the incredible benefit of actually a more intensive schedule, being continuously every day for 3 months, and not just, you know, 1 class a day or 2 classes a day, but it's like all day, every day. Yeah, so that's how it came about. And yeah, so the Yoga Arts 9-month teacher training was born, and that was in 1994 that the first one happened. Yeah.
Wow. And now you're obviously still doing, well, not 9-month programs, but incredible trainings. And, you know, I feel very, very fortunate to have done my level 2 training with Yoga Arts. It was a really, really beautiful, it felt like such a well-balanced, enriching, like holistic experience, particularly in terms of a lot of the, you know, training that's out there today. And I distinctly recall, so that was in 2013, and I recall having come to Bali to do the training with you guys, and that was before you'd built the beautiful space that you have now, the Shala. And I was pretty burnt out, and I had come off the back of teaching like 30 to 33 classes a week, which was not intended to be long term. I was actually helping a friend take over her studio while she was overseas training alongside my own classes, and I was really burnt out. And I distinctly recall hearing you speak about how your own process of experiencing the benefits and the beauty of a more dynamic asana-based practice. But I think you said to me something along the lines of, Amy, when you get to my age, it really doesn't matter so much anymore, like it's not everything, pushing the body so much. I think I was having a lot of back pain and whatnot. And that really stuck with me. So I'm curious to know, what does your practice look like now, given, you've been doing this since you were so young, which is incredible and very rare. Yeah, what does your practice look like at the moment?
So basically, my practice, just in simple practice, which involves, some pranayama and meditation and asana. And it's anything from an hour up to 2 hours maximum a day. Like when I say, and that's varied, depending on what's going on. So sometimes it might be an hour and a half, sometimes 2, but often it's more like an hour and a half. Yeah. And my asana practice is definitely, I call it's simply doing a practice for what my everyday needs are, and that might change from, every day. So knowing what my needs are, and it's a simple practice. I'm definitely not doing the fancy postures that I once did, which, I enjoyed to do at the time. And then, it just got at the point where, it just wasn't desired or needed to do that. And as we know, at the end of the day, yoga's not about that. And but we definitely, we get this incredible physiological benefit with moving our bodies. And the most important is that we do it intelligently and with wisdom. And this is important. So I still do just a simple asana practice which works all the parts of the body. And the simple pranayama practices also, and then always some meditation. We sort of wake up in the morning, my partner and I, we practice together. And we're very fortunate here in beautiful Bali. And we sort of, get up early, and that's our daily routine.
I guess the reality very much for many people is that asana is the doorway for most people into yoga, but we have to kind of remind ourselves that it's not the actual destination, but perhaps that we need to, I guess, figure that out in our own way, in our own time, And as you reflect upon your path, who would you say, who do you feel has been or is the most influential teacher or mentor, or person that, has really shaped you along this journey?
I guess some of these teachers, or one of them that I mentioned before, the Swami Satchidananda, because even though that was like a transmission of energy, so to speak, but most of my teachers that I now feel that I could say that have influenced me most of them have left their body now. And one, I guess, comes to mind, which has been very influential, is Nisargadatta, which is an Advaita teacher. And he's very famous for his book, I Am That. And so just in terms of this spiritual yogic philosophy, and so these have been very influential for me. Like when it comes to I've had so many teachers, it's really hard to sort of not mention so many people living and not living. But I guess it's the teachings that just go straight to the point, straight to the heart of why we're doing what we're doing and why we're doing these practices and these tools and all of the tools. And I mean also, the asana, because the asana, yes, we know that, it's a very physical aspect of yoga, and maybe we could say like a more grosser form of the sadhana tools, but it all depends on one's state of mind with which one does it. And so all of the tools are important, but it's what these tools are, directing us, what direction that they're moving us in, what they're allowing us to see, is the important thing. Yeah. So the teachers that have most influenced me in that way is for the ones that have, continually reminded me of that. And I guess a lot of the teachers that speak specifically about being here now, being present. And, we all have heard of that, and it can sound even a little bit cliche. And one of the beautiful books that also influenced me a long time ago was the Be Here Now by Baba Hari Ram Das, who actually recently has sort of left his body. But that, and it was sort of, this was, I think in my teens, I read that book. But to this day, this is really, you read the Patanjali Sutras, you read a lot of the scriptures, everything comes back to being awake and being present and allowing the mind to be empty so we can be absolutely here now. And all of these tools are doing that, yeah? And so I've got a lot from the teachers teaching Advaita and also the Tantric traditions, because also in the essence of their traditions, absolutely, it's just a continually coming back to, it's in embracing the world, being in the world, but being absolutely present, with whatever it is that we do on a day-to-day level, simply. Yeah, so I don't know if I answered your question in much depth.
No, beautiful.
I just, but so many, all of these beautiful teachers and so many of these, there's millions of books out there, on this subject, talking about this. And in so many different ways it's being expressed in different vocabulary, and not to get confused and not to misinterpret teachings, because we all get attracted and we listen to this book, these words, or we read this book, and saying in different ways, but it comes back to the same thing. And that's why I find that the beauty of the simplicity of really the essence of these teachings, all saying the same thing and being really simple, actually, very, very simple. And something that, that I love about the yogic practices is that if you're willing to look and see and with an intention do these practices, that they will show you and they will reveal the purity of what they are there for and giving us. Yeah.
So speaking of teaching, you've obviously trained many teachers. You're essentially a teacher's teacher, and you've been doing it for a long time, both in the Australian community, but now very much in a global way, being based in Bali. So, and there's obviously a lot more yoga teachers now, and more, which is wonderful because there's still plenty of people out there that haven't found yoga yet.
Yeah.
What do you feel is the biggest misconception, or one of the misconceptions around teaching yoga?
Maybe I would say, I don't know if it would be the terminology of misconception, but that I think people get a little bit an illusion of their idea of teaching. Yeah, maybe that's the word I'm trying to look for. They get an idea of it being somewhat glamorous, Yeah. And I say that in our world of, sensationalism and media
Social
and
media.
marketing, yeah, social media marketing, all of those things, it gets glamorized, yeah. And so that is, I guess, a real misconception. And because it's so far from that, it's absolutely the opposite of that. Um, and I guess it can be unfortunate that people are running on that, if you know what I mean, that sort of maybe moving them in direction of like, oh yeah, wow, I want to be a yoga teacher. And at the end of the day, I mean, hopefully no matter the same reasons of why people maybe start practicing yoga, maybe the same reason of maybe why they'll start teaching, that hopefully that illusion gets shattered or broken sooner than later. Yeah. But yeah, so I would say that that's, definitely one of the biggest misconceptions, because it's it's an incredibly humbling experience, to put yourself in the position of a teacher. And I think the qualities of a teacher, which is so important to have, is one, the dedication and the passion for what it is, for that which you're teaching to people, having that passion, for you to be able to share that to others. That's so important. And that definitely I think is also lacking because of this glamorization. So people go into it for so many different reasons. It's just a new career, or it just looks cool, it's a really cool job, wow, I see people, they seem to be spending all this incredible time in these beautiful locations around the world doing retreats. I want to do that job. It looks like the amazing job, and of course it is an amazing job as well. But yes, it's there's so much more to it. It's really it puts you on the line teaching, this thing that you have a passion about. It's like, you've got to show up. You've got to really stand sort of strong in your own integrity for what it is that, you stand for in terms of, teaching yoga. And the beautiful aspect of that is, so on a daily basis as well, obviously you've got your daily practice, but somehow, you getting a strong mirror, to look at yourself. And the essence of these yoga teachings is absolutely self-understanding and self-knowledge. You have to, be looking, you have to turn your gaze inward to awaken, as an individual, to be able to move into that state of freedom, which the yoga is, moving us towards in terms of moksha. Yeah. Yeah, so
It's a big, I guess it's a big energy exchange teaching yoga, and not a lot of people
yes.
realize that, and it's not something that's going to bring you riches either. And I mean, maybe for 1% of the teaching population, I don't know, for a
Yes.
handful, but and it was interesting. Once I became a mum, I had this realization when I couldn't go back to teaching as many classes as what I had previously, and I was teaching a lot less still, but I came to realize that I was okay with that, because I guess I had this kind of conversation with myself and thought, if I have a sincere desire to be doing this forever, it's not like a quick moment of fame and glory, but there's a sincere undertone of just like, this is what I literally want to share to the day I die. There's no hurry, and there's no need to identify with what it's supposed to look like in the world today, because that's going to change. It'll be really interesting, I think, to see who is still teaching yoga maybe in 20 years, 30 years. But in terms of teacher trainings, and again, I'm a little biased because I absolutely love the yoga arts training. There were so many elements that were brought in. There was a rich element of Ayurveda, and the sadhana practice that we had with the week of silence. And I really appreciated you teaching us how to work really effectively with people one-on-one from that therapeutic perspective. And that's actually stayed with me to this day, with working with people one-on-one. And So, what are your thoughts for those listening out there if they are contemplating doing a training? Like, what are the real important elements that they should be looking for in a training, do you think?
Yeah, definitely looking for, on the real practical level, like if you want to be a teacher, I really feel that, which you sort of briefly mentioned before, we want to be teaching yoga to everybody, meaning that it's accessible to everybody. It's just not accessible to the young and to the fit or to whatever. We need to have tools to be able to teach anyone who, pretty much, of course, anyone that walks into your class, so to speak. Of course, we can specialize in different areas, whether yoga therapy, and be much more specific for individuals that need special attention. But yes, we need tools to attract everyone. So the training, I feel, if you're looking for one, in terms of what their schedule is and their modules in the training, I think to be able to cover that, it can't be too. I know there's some trainings out there, I think that they have their own, like they model a little bit more, how can I say, what's the word? A little bit like that's what I'm trying to get, they're franchised a little bit like maybe their own sequence or something like that. And I personally feel that even when it comes to asana, you need to really get a good overall knowledge of all the asana bases in the ways that you can teach. Yeah, that's really important, yeah, to be able to help people individually. If you really franchise something down, I feel like you're limiting. Yeah, so I feel that's important to look at. And of course, to have a strong philosophical, basis in the training. And I also really believe that, like, yoga philosophy, really getting to the heart of what yoga is, it can be taught in a way that is also very simple and for every day. Yeah, it's not like it's not the super important that you learn all these Sanskrit terminologies, or even some of these writings from ancient texts, etc. But that this philosophy is transmitted and delivered in a way that we can all understand and take it into our lives, and for it to work, to really enable us to make the change that it can do within ourselves. And so as a teacher, that we can then also hopefully deliver it to students, the philosophy. So again, that people can really have something usable, I guess the word I'm trying to say, usable and substantial, to make the change that we want it to change. I sometimes find that philosophical wise, people sometimes they are getting taught all this fancy stuff, and then they sort of go out, but it's a bit like,
It doesn't translate.
Yeah, a bit like, what do I do with all that? Okay, I sort of understand, and that was very beautiful and all of that, but okay, here I am back here with my family and my work and no. So the interesting thing is, it is all about that. It is to take it back into your life. So, we can be a better human being, and we can evolve as a human being, and we can definitely be an example and start to experience firsthand what it is to live more at peace and to be more present and awake on a daily basis. So in terms of a training, having a foundation, delivering this type of knowledge and wisdom, clearly and simply, and then all the tools that go with the yoga, to enable us to be able to go out there and teach the masses, because the world needs yoga. The world's always needed it, and it still needs it. And I know there's other paths out there that lead in the same direction, but yoga, in my experience, it's been around for thousands and thousands of years, and it works. And when I talk about yoga too, I'm also including Ayurveda in that, because they're sister sciences and they go together, because it's about life and living and the lifestyle. So it's all in there together. So they've been practiced for thousands of years and they work, they're amazing. They really are. Yeah.
I guess it's that reframing for many people to appreciate that the yoga isn't what is being defined by your yoga mat, so to speak. It's that how does it translate and continue into every living, breathing element, of your life. And so given that you, I guess, have this background that pulls from different traditions and different paths or lineages of the yoga system, how do you feel you honor tradition, or how can we honor tradition? Because I can relate personally. My training, I pull from different paths, and I don't identify with one particular style of yoga in terms of asana and whatnot. So when we take a step back and just, hold all the teachings, how can we honor that yoga tradition in daily life?
Yeah. I guess when I think of honoring the tradition, I can't help but I've got like this one-track mind. And it's just like, I go back to the source, I go back to truth as such, meaning, even that saying, it's like, Hari Om Tat Sat, I am the truth. I am that which is everywhere, which is omnipresent. There's nothing but that. That is God, that is love, that is everything. So that is my honoring. That is my honor in all the traditions, because no matter whether it was this tradition or that tradition, or whether it's Advaita, or whether it's Samkhya, or whether it's any of these particular paths, there's nothing but the one essence in that. And there's many things in tradition. And if we were to isolate what the word tradition means, very simply as I understand it, sometimes it's, it can be simply that something that has been, practiced over a long period of time. Yeah. And so as we know, there's some things that might have been practiced for a long period of time, but it might not be useful or beneficial or practice that way anymore. Yeah. So of course, not all traditions are something that maybe we need to honor. And sometimes I feel that we can get caught up in a thing that we should be honoring all tradition just because the fact that it was practiced 1,000 years ago. But, maybe that wasn't a good choice. And now we realize, actually, wow, we should, this is a much more optimum way. Yeah. But the tradition that I really honor and I relate to, again, is that which has never been anything but that. Yeah. And all of, in terms of maybe spiritual traditions, you will find it in all of those traditions, no matter of the tools or the rituals that may be, performed around that. But it's just simply going to that source. So I honor that with everything. That's the beauty of it. Yeah. And that's devotion. Yeah.
Ooh, okay. So let me take that word there. Let's take devotion, because I was going to ask you next, similarly, but not the same, let's talk a little bit about ritual. And that was sort of, if you take it in a very physical, literal context with respect to, say, doing Homa or Agnihotra, etc., how can we, or how do you, or how can we invite that element of ritual into our world, which is, it's so special you're in Bali, so you probably feel that that's always present and around you. But with respect to your experience and whatnot, because I feel that element is almost lacking for most people in the yoga community, yet it brings just like so much beauty and, as you said, devotion into the path. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, the whole idea of ritual is, again, it's to bring the person performing the ritual to a place of absolute presence and intention. Yeah. So we're performing, whatever it is, and it's to be absolutely 100% with that. So within the ritual, there's usually that element of devotion. Yeah. So it's like an outpouring of like love and devotion to whatever that is that we're making this offering to. Yeah. So with our heart open, with our mind focused. Yeah. So we've got a concentration, we have an intention, we have our absolute 100% state of presence. So this is ritual. Yeah. And so when we think of what those elements are, we realize that we can make also anything a ritual also. And when I say that, I don't want to water it all down, because there's some very beautiful and specific rituals in different traditions. Yeah. And I see it, as you said, I see it here all the time in Bali, which still just blows me away with the beauty here. And in fact, it's Tuesday today, and tomorrow is a very big ceremony in Bali, and they have it twice a year, and it's called Galungang. Yeah, there's Galungang, then Kuningang a week later. And so tomorrow they're having this ceremony, and the things that they're doing, everyone's preparing and they're making offerings, and they're making these incredibly beautiful, it's called a pendor, and they have it, you put it outside of your house, and it's this huge thing that it's like this big flag type thing, but of course it's made of bamboo and made of rattan and all these incredible, natural things. But yeah, so they, in some of these traditions, like in India and Bali, they have these incredibly sophisticated and intricate, rituals that they're doing continually on a daily basis and then on a yearly basis. Yeah. So there's so much beauty in that, and they all have their specific meanings that go with it. But again, in terms of what the whole purpose of a ritual is, it's important that we understand what that is and that we give it our full. Yeah. And it could be simply that, you have a ritual every afternoon of going and sitting in your garden, and it's something that maybe that you give yourself just 15 minutes that you're sitting in nature and able to just observe the the flora and the fauna, and have that in absolute presence. So anything and everything can be a ritual. And some people who also start yoga, they don't feel so comfortable with some of the more traditional yogic, rituals that we might have for, different deities, or even like the Agnihotra, even some of it might be a bit like, but you can do, people can do their own ritual. Yeah. As again, with that same intention. So that's what it is for me. And as much as I might do some traditional type of ritual, but I definitely try and bring in my own ritual, things that, bring out that love and that devotion and reminder. It's another opportunity when you do that ritual to be present to life and to be absolutely there. So it's, again, you are in a state of connection and not a state of disconnection.
So it's ultimately presence and intention that really is the foundation of ritual. It could be some beautiful, simple puja, or even an elaborate puja, or it could be making a cup of tea. So it's that intent that you're bringing. I love that. Yeah,
absolutely. Much. Preparing your food, even,
Yes. Yeah. Which, well, that would be certainly a very Ayurvedic thing, for sure. Yes. But I would love to ask you a few personal questions, little fun questions. So what does life living in alignment look or feel like to you personally?
I guess, again, all of these, so many of these things, this subject that we're talking about, it's like a mandala, as in they're all connected. Yeah, they're all connected. But again, I guess I come back to, for me to be in alignment is for me to have an understanding of what my needs are for my optimum well-being of mind and body, yeah, which again comes down again to the purpose of yoga, yeah. So, and that understanding is self-understanding, and I get that self-understanding through my balanced lifestyle, which again is the yoga and Ayurveda together. So being in alignment, or allowing myself to maintain alignment, maintaining a sense of being connected and not disconnected. And these days it's very easy to get disconnected and to go out of alignment, yeah. So what can I do? It's like, my questions to myself always, and reminders to myself, reminding, it's like, what can I do? How do I live my life, to maintain that alignment, that balance, that well-being, that optimum well-being, and so, so it starts with, of course, going to bed early, waking up early, that I get enough sleep, so of course I'm going into all these Ayurvedic principles, waking up at the early hour where I can get up, and then I do the things that start my day and allow myself to be bright and alert and ready for the day. And I don't think I'll take up the time in going through all those little things, because I'm sure you've had many talks and discussions on an Ayurvedic level of what all these little daily routines can be. But that's what I do to stay in alignment, my daily practice, my eating habits, my sleeping habits, the constant reminders, by doing a daily ritual or reading of certain books, the way that I prepare my food, my work schedule, so many things. It's a constant it's a constant mindful daily life, constant mindful daily life of, as things are presenting themselves to me, it's that I'm able to maintain a state of connectedness and presence. And so this keeps me aligned. Yeah. It's when I, if I'm doing too much and so I get, stressed, or, if something, takes me off balance, that I start worrying about something and my mind starts to get very busy and preoccupied and involved with something, then I straight away I get taken off. Yeah. So staying in alignment basically means to me with understanding my own needs, which may sound very simple, but again, this is also a foundation of self-realization and self-understanding, because of course we all have basic needs, food, shelter, etc. But what are your needs? What are my needs? And my needs and your needs be very different. And we can't look out in the world and think that our needs are the same. We are so different in our mind-body makeup, and in terms of that understanding comes very clearly in the Ayurveda and yoga teachings, to really understand specifically what are my needs. Yeah. And that's why when it comes to, we cannot have any judgment, for anybody else, because how can we judge what someone else is doing when we have no idea what their needs are? We need to focus on what our needs are. And if we can look after ourselves, and to me, this is the most important thing that any individual can do on the planet, is getting their home in order. Get your own home in order. And when I mean your own home, I'm talking about self. Get this in order. If we can get this in order, if we can stay connected, if we can stay in alignment, this is your biggest contribution to humanity, to help the collective consciousness, is to be able to contribute that little bit of peace to the cosmos, because you individually have got your own home in order. Don't worry about anybody else's home. Get your own home in order. Sure, we can support and share and care for others, but we must do that, with ourselves, because this is where the world goes crazy. It's people have become disconnected, and and let so many things.
This is where Ayurveda brings us back to the self. Everything's so simple in Ayurveda, and in human nature we tend to just overlook all the simple things, and tend to look outwardly, to what's going to fix the problem.
Absolutely, yes.
We think it's easier to look outwardly and to seek outwardly or to blame outwardly, rather than turn to oneself and really, really, and it can be hard, I guess, in certain circumstances for people because of conditioning, of course, and it's hard to sort of see. But I suppose that's where the yoga practices come in, to just unravel that in a way.
Absolutely. And I look at it also there, it's a reminder. Like, Ayurveda and yoga's been around for a long time, but it's not like it's something new, that as if like we don't know this, but we've forgotten. So it's constantly reminding us, by again going back into it, but it's simply being aligned with nature, because we've, unfortunately, in the modern world, we're disconnected. So these are reminders for us, to stay connected. And it's not like it's something new, really, but
I guess there's a human tendency to think that we're superior to nature, which is totally ludicrous, because when the human race is wiped out, the earth will still be here.
It goes on.
It goes on, life goes on, and maybe it'll look a little different, but there's that humbling, that is experienced when we can be very connected to the richness of these really ancient systems as we unpack them.
It always reminds me, you talked about before about, on the mat or off the mat, and we sometimes use this word of, I practice yoga, and it's like, I practice. It's like, okay, well, when you really look at that, vocabulary, what's that saying? It's like, I'm practice. Well, what are you practicing for? So, we're practicing for something. And, we're doing this practice, yes, to practice and to remind ourselves of that which we're talking about now, of coming back. And yes, that's why we do it, but that practice on the mat is simply the practice. Some people say it's not the yoga yet, you know what I mean, as such.
Yes. I'm practicing for when I can get there and do it. And it's like, well, the yoga is now.
Yes.
It's right now. It's here. It's now, it's interesting, the language. I want to have a few more short, sharp little questions for you. What would be your favorite sound? As the roosters crow in the background.
Yes, anything in nature, like just as you said that, yes, I could hear that, and it's like I could hear the leaves here, because we've got this big, I don't know if you can see it there. But it's just beautiful. Like, the big leaves rustling, and just anything from nature. I just get blown away with nature every day, and it's my, it's my everything. I love it. So it's just like, the sound, I can hear the birds a lot here. There's any sounds in nature, I would say.
Medicine. What's your favorite place? And it doesn't have to be geographical, but it can be. However you want to interpret that.
I guess you just answered it by saying that then. Is which I have to say, again, the subject of all subjects, this is what we've been talking about, my favorite place. What could not be your favorite place but to be absolutely here? And there's nothing more profound and more beautiful and more than that, because when you are absolutely here fully, you can then be anywhere and everywhere, and that will be beautiful, absolutely that.
So what would be your daily non-negotiable? I'm sure there's many, but
I guess my daily non-negotiable is my practice, I guess. I probably have so many, because I don't really think about it. It's just a natural daily thing.
Which is so
um,
wonderful.
yeah. So yeah, it's having that, and that, yeah, daily practice, I would say. It's a really, it's just, giving myself that time, which is very, it's very sacred, it's very special, and whether it's short or whether it's long, it's just, yeah, I've given that time to myself. Even if I'm going to have a busy day, I can give myself that. Yeah.
What's your favorite go-to meal or food?
I'm a savory person, meaning I'm more
Mm.
to the salty, not the sweet. And I guess these days I like to eat. I mean, in some ways I'm a foodie. I mean, I love food. And at the same time, I like to also eat very simply. Um, so actually, I really love simply steaming vegetables, all different vegetables, and recently asparagus. They were getting lots of nice fresh asparagus here, and beetroot, and just steaming them, and just olive oil and lemon juice with a little bit of salt. That was something that I
So
could eat
simple, so
every
good.
day. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yum. All right, what are you curious about right now?
Ah, that's curious is the right word, but what I get curious is in there. I have lots of things that um, I'm interested in, and in meaning like all things sort of like natural, and like things like, doing a little bit of gardening, and so, like planting herbs and planting vegetables, and so curious about, what plants like to go with what, and of course all the incredible medicinal value of herbs, and making up herbal concoctions, and making up herbal creams, and doing like all those things that somehow either nature is giving or has given or around. I cannot get enough of it, and I have to be careful because it can be a little bit of a, even something, that thing of something that can even so beautiful but can put me out of alignment, because I love, I'm interested and curious about so many things in that arena that, yeah, sometimes it can be, I just like to do too much, basically. Which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. Yeah,
I'm
so
sure there's worse things that you could be doing too much of, though,
yeah, sure.
than gardening. Wonderful. So, I know that it's been a bit of a weird and wild year,
Mm.
but let's just say in terms of normalcy coming back soon, what have you got coming up in the pipeline with respect to, like, what's the general outline of trainings or anything that you're doing? What does the future hold? What's your intention anyway?
Yeah, so for this year, like most people, we're sort of a little bit on hold um, with a lot of our regular courses and things. Yeah, unfortunately, everything sort of got cancelled for 2020. And I've also been very slow on the uptake for online. It's still in the pipeline of getting there to do something online, which I'm really open to do. But yeah, I'm a little bit old school, so it's just been a slow process. But in terms of our face-to-face courses, we still have next year our level 1 starting in June, and our level 2 in October here in Bali at our place here at the Shala Bali. And we also have a 40-hour continued education course, which is basically like a methodology course. It will include some Ayurveda and philosophy, but really focusing on asana methodology, for teaching. So that's a little 40-hour course for people that like short courses. So I think we're doing a couple of those next year, and our level 1, our level 2, and we'll still need to confirm some dates. Normally we do at least 1 or 2 like holiday retreats here, but we're just waiting to see how that's looking in terms of the situation. Yeah.
And so, as and when people can get back to Bali, when international travel opens up again, can you just explain, where you guys are, how they can find you? Because you have an awesome cafe out the front as well, if people want to come and eat.
Yeah,
Do you want to
yeah,
speak a little
yeah.
bit to that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we have this beautiful place here in Ubud in Bali, where it's a yoga retreat center. So we have really lovely accommodation in nature, with a beautiful big yoga shala that looks over the rice paddies. We have our own little on-site treatment center where you can get Ayurvedic and traditional like treatments and massages, and plus two vegetarian cafes. One which is roadside, which is called Mumbai Station, which is a pure Indian vegetarian, more like home-style Indian cooking with masala dosas and things. And again, we started that one simply because we love the food, and so we have a simple menu which has got also a Ayurvedic influence in our dishes. Yeah, so we have that, and yeah, the great thing about our place here in Ubud, where you can come and study and do yoga, or just come and stay for that matter, and enjoy beautiful Bali, is that we're immersed here in nature. And like from the roadside, which is, it's only like very close to Ubud, like about a 3 or 4 minute drive to Ubud. At the same time, when you walk in, so it's a little walk into the place, so it's quiet, there's no cars or bikes. And once you get here, you could be anywhere, you're surrounded by nature. At the same time, you're still close to the Ubud center, that if you want to go in and explore what's happening there in the Ubud center, in terms of there's a lot of cultural things, etc. That's not far.
I do remember walking up and down, the hill to get into town, but you're right, like coming into the space, I remember at nighttime, like the fireflies were out over the rice fields. It's so magical. It's just, can people stay with you guys even if they're not on a training or a retreat? Can they book accommodation, or is it specifically as a retreat package program?
Yeah, absolutely. They can come and they can stay, and they can stay and maybe just get treatments. And normally we also now have a little yoga studio, like a second one above the little cafe at Mumbai, where normally, not right now because of the situation, but normally we have like everyday classes happening there too. So if you just want to come and do classes, get treatments, or just come and holiday in Bali, yes, we have the accommodation just there. And as you said, it's so much nature around. I just love it still every day, because we walk regularly, back and forth, and there's ducks and there's chickens and there's squirrels, and there's the fireflies, and so many little animals, and nature happenings all the time.
So where's the best place for people to get more information? So website or social media? Yeah, where should they go?
For the website here, I think it's called just www.theshalabali.com. Yep, so that should just show the place. In terms of the courses and trainings that I do, my website now is it's changed recently. It's www.yogaarts-om.com. Yeah,
Okay.
so it's all lowercase, yogaarts-om.com, and that sort of also gives information about all the courses that I'm doing and happening here. So both of those websites, I think.
Yeah, and you have Facebook, I think, and Instagram for both anyway.
There's Facebook for Instagram and Facebook for both of those. Probably the Facebook and Instagram for the Shala Bali is a little bit more regular, and for the yoga arts, I think we're posting maybe a little bit more regular on Instagram now than the Facebook. But
I can link up all the details anyway, so people can just click a button.
Great.
And it's all easy peasy. So but that's wonderful. Thank you so much. It's been a real delight to have your wisdom coming through my computer screen, which is kind of funny in today's day and age in the sense of COVID, but it's been a real blessing to be able to have these conversations, and particularly have the time with you. It's been so nice to see you and speak with you after so long. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Amy. It's been such a joy, such a pleasure, really. I enjoyed it so much, and so lovely to see you. And it blows me away. It's so amazing, seeing the person there, on the screen. And somehow, that's one good thing about this, whole internet and thing that we can have this, and it's still possible. Yeah.
One of the many silver linings, really.
Yeah.
If this episode was of value to you and your life, please subscribe. And if you can think of someone who would benefit from this dialogue, please do them a favour and send it their way. If you feel called, hop on over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review. This is the best way to get these conversations into the ears and hearts of our wider community, to those who need it most. You can find me at amyelandry.com or over on Instagram at amyelandry. May we all move a little closer to a life living in alignment.